Hello everyone, welcome to another installment of Erin's Book Club. It is like super hot here, so you're gonna have to excuse all of this. I'm barely able to function at this point. But I do have a book review to do with you today that I want to go through now that I've had time to kind of digest it after I've read it. So the book review I have to do today is Deadliest Enemy by Deadliest Enemy, Our War Against Killer Germs by Michael T. Osterholm and by Mark Olshaker. Probably said that wrong, but there we are. And before I get into the nitty-gritty of it, I do want to comment on the aesthetics of it. So that's the cover. It's a pretty direct cover. It draws your attention. Good and yellow. The hardback is a solid yellow with the writing on the spine. Nondescript, average hardback cover. I like it though. It is well written. The chapters are short enough that you feel as though you've gotten through a lot, even if maybe you haven't. Really enjoyed the way it was put together. The subject matter, on the other hand, I'm undecided about, especially with what we're struggling with now with COVID-19 and having to stay in this war that we're getting between vaccinated and unvaccinated people. And just to say my viewpoint on it, I believe that vaccination is a good thing. I think that it would help in the situation that we're dealing with now. I don't think that people should be pressured or bullied into being vaccinated. Like my place of work just passed a mandate that says by a certain date we have to be vaccinated, or we are going to have to test ourselves daily with the nasal test before we'll be allowed to work in the building. And I agree, if you don't want to be vaccinated, you should be tested more regularly because, again, you're at a higher risk. However, what I'm not liking seeing is the ones that are vaccinated are apparently immune to all the viruses, is the way it's being treated. Like, so we're testing out the unvaccinated people, which I agree with, but it says right on the letter where I work that the ones that have been vaccinated, totally exempt. And I don't care how good any vaccine is, it's never 100%. So the vaccinated people should also be spot tested, in my viewpoint. But anyway, that has nothing really to do with the book. So let's talk about the book. The book is about basically the world's preparedness for epidemic type viruses and diseases hitting the world. And as we're living through right now, we were not prepared. And a lot of the information on the book I really enjoyed. Like, there was an explanation on the flu vaccine and why the flu vaccine has to be changed all the time. And what was interesting on that was, and again, these are epidemiologists. These are people who study this disease. I'm having epidemiologists here saying that there were some years where the flu vaccine was absolutely 0% effective. And instead of the 70 to 90% of effectiveness that the vaccine was advertised as being, they were in fact maybe 20 to 50% effective, which again, I'm okay with. I still think it's a good idea to get vaccinated just in case. But I worry about doing every year. And it says here in the book too that being vaccinated every year for the flu vaccine could actually be detrimental to our immune response. So that was an interesting concept. Plus, the very first article, or the very first discussion in this book, was how they had joined this disease society or disease group, and they were conflicted over a new article that was written about AIDS and the treatment of AIDS and that kind of thing. They were conflicted about being able to allow that article to be published because they didn't want people to know how the AIDS virus was created. They were worried that backyard folk would create this virus and use it for harm, like terrorist type things. And it really pissed me off at first because I'm like, first of all, you're talking about censoring medical information that the general public should probably know, on the premise that you're afraid that backyard terrorist type groups are going to take this disease information and use it to attack the public. Any terrorist group who wants to use a disease of anything to attack the public won't go by lawful means. So you censoring a bit of information, you're only harming the general public, because if they want to find information on how to make a disease, guess what? They're going to find information on how to make a disease. They're not going to go through the lawful channels. And then further on down the book, they were talking about, I think it was SARS or MRSA, maybe SARS, about how the Chinese government and the Japanese government and that end actually withheld information from the US government, and how it was bad that the Chinese government censored that information because the US government could have used it to help in fighting the disease. And I'm thinking, that's really hypocritical, because now you've said that you're angry that somebody else censored something from you, but you guys were fighting about censoring something from somebody else. And throughout the entire book, it was more of a, we're leading the way in the fight against all these diseases because we're American, and we're putting up all the information because we're American, and all these other companies are so far beneath our education and our knowledge on these diseases, but they have to start stepping it up and giving us more money because we're the leaders of all of it. And it was just so much of America, oorah, we're amazing, and less of, these are the diseases that we have to worry about, and here's how we can work together to try to fight these diseases, and this is the information that we know, and maybe we can pool our resources together to try to come to a solution. There was very little of that. There was more, this is everything that we're doing, we're amazing, we're great. And then on top of all of that, there was a lot of, the Bill Gates Society is amazing. The Miranda, I think Miranda or whatever the wife's name is, Bill Gates is amazing. Bill Gates has done all of this. Bill Gates has done all of that. Bill Gates has funded all of this. Bill Gates has funded all of that. And I'm sure that's great. That's wonderful that Bill Gates has done that. But you don't know what his agenda is. Wouldn't it be convenient if he funded all this information to find info on AIDS or whatever, they find a cure or a vaccine? Guess who directly benefits financially from that? So yes, okay, don't put words in my mouth. I'm sure Bill Gates is doing a lot to help with the medical field and scientific information, but there is an agenda to it. He isn't just doing it to be humanitarian. The man didn't make money because he likes people. Like, that's just not the way that works. It was a very biased book, and it was frustrating because some of that information in there I wanted to learn about. Some of that information about the diseases I wanted to learn about the influenza virus and what we're doing to help with the influenza virus. I wanted to know about that scientific information, and I wanted to know about what we can do to help fight those germs. Kind of like the book says, our war against killer germs. The book doesn't say how the US is so much better at fighting these germs than anybody else. So, like, and there's so much finger pointing in this book. There's so much, well, the CDC says this, and the WHO says that, and they were wrong, and I was right, and I'm amazing because I know everything, and, you know, I know the struggle of you low folks because my son had this disease, and we had to fight to get my son back, and, like, just, it was very upsetting at points, and it was strange, too, because this was written, I think, in 2016, 2017, a few years before COVID. And multiple times in this book, it says that the next epidemic will either be an influenza-type virus or a COVID-type virus, which are very similar viruses. They're all both respiratory viruses. And a lot of what he said would happen, did happen. But he didn't bring a lot of solutions to the table when he was saying all this stuff could happen. It was more like, all this stuff is happening because you guys aren't listening to what we're saying. I have a lot to think about in this book. I find that the author or the narrator or whoever wrote it is a bit arrogant, a bit big-headed, especially for a topic where this should be basically, we should be fighting together to stop this disease or diseases. I don't know. Again, lots to think about. Learned a lot from the book, especially about influenza and that kind of thing. But again, it was full of politics. It was full of my agenda's better or I'm better instead of let's get this disease dealt with. And I think that's what upsets me more, is it could have been more about how we fight to protect the people, and it was very little of that. Anyway, that's all I have to say about this book. It's probably one that I'm going to have to sit and digest for a while before I really know what I want to do, but I think I liked it, all in all. If you can look past the politics and the finger pointing and that kind of thing, I think I like the basic information on it. It just, I don't know. I'm undecided. Anyway, I'm excited to start another book just to get my mind off of this one, and I will let you know when I have another book read. Stay safe, everybody.